I'd like to talk to you today about the airdrop capability in a combat environment and the talk of a reduction in that capability. As we start today, I'll give you a brief history of a few airdrop scenarios. First, we'll start with the Battle of the Bulge in World War II, where our forces were in a winter environment, cut off from the Allies and supply chains, surrounded by the German army, and they had no way to be resupplied other than airdrop. Then we look into Vietnam and the Battle of Quezon. Son. Once again, U.S. forces were surrounded by the enemy. Air-land operations by C-130 and other aircraft were flying in and resupplying, and then it just got too hostile to land aircraft that were ultimately being destroyed, and the supplies were lost anyhow. Also, the enemy was found to be just too close to the base for us to get in an air-land environment. But how did the airdrop resupplies help that? They kept the fight going. They kept ammo coming in. They kept food, water, all from the air. Then we look into recent history in Afghanistan, and it's still going on today. We found that the improvised explosive devices, IEDs, to be deadly to traditional truck resupply convoys. It also shows us that we are operating in oftentimes very remote forward operating bases or combat outposts, and some of the rotary wing aircraft that would normally resupply in that environment, due to the elevation in Afghanistan, it was found that the operating limits of the aircraft were being matched or exceeded. One key point to make here is that the bulk of supplies needed to sustain today's warfighter is probably more than it ever has been. Now that brings us to the reduction in the airdrop capability. What would this do to us? Just as a snapshot. The first thing that comes to mind is it would lessen the amount of forces able to be resupplied, which the primary user being the U.S. Army. But any land component that needed to be resupplied. It would lessen the amount of supplies able to be airdropped. Less crews capable of operating in an airdrop scenario means less supplies able to be dropped, which ultimately it seems that this decision would be driven by money savings. But is money worth a decrease in readiness? As I conclude here today, I think I've showed you the history of the airdrop and where we would be with reduction in that capability. Just a small snapshot of that. But an ultimate decrease in readiness would result from us being unable to sustain forces. We would leave, or possibly leave, forces cut off from resupply. We would limit our global reach to operate in any environment, day or night. But I think the most important thing as I conclude here is it would lead to last-minute training of the crews that are needed for the airdrop capability, which could lead to less experience. With less experience comes mistakes, malfunctions of the rigging, malfunctions of the airdrop equipment, unsuccessful drops, and off-DZ drops, ultimately putting the warfighter on the ground at more risk. All of this together leads to If we reduce the airdrop capability in a combat environment for our forces, we ultimately decrease our readiness.